Hey trackies, welcome back to TXT Track Time. Yes, this is TXT Track Time, guys. I have to keep the channel turning over, though it is shadow banned, so I won't be posting over here as much as I used to. I'll be posting over on TXT Track Time News. So go on over there, go subscribe, tell your friend, tell your neighbor, tell everybody, say, go on back at TXT Track Time News and help her to regrow another platform. You know what I mean? That being said, guys, this particular topic is something that I've actually wanted to talk about for a couple weeks, but unfortunately, y'all see what happened. I got hit by some strikes. But incidentally, it's actually about the Issa Grace Kennedy Boys and Girls Athletics Championships. Funny enough, right? And something that I realize is a growing trend and something that needs to stop as far as I'm concerned. But even though I said I wanted to talk about it for a few weeks now, I actually forgot about it, to be fair. But it was brought back to my attention over the weekend because I watched the Grand Slam Track League, and I was thinking to myself, after seeing a particular commenter commenting quite a few times about how much they didn't like the commentary from Grand Slam and the reason why they didn't like it. And sometimes I think that is probably this is only a Jamaican thing, because we're kind of expecting to hear, people speak on our athletes, and we don't necessarily hear that. Quite rightly so, because I do believe that you need to give athletes proper introduction, especially an athlete like a Daniel Williams that is, two-time world champion and the actual defending world champion over the women's 100-meter hurdles. It's a disservice to not, have her figure or feature when it comes to a major meeting of any kind, and she's partaking for sure. So not that I disagree with the points being made. But the fact that I actually find it quite hypocritical, given again what I listened to from the Issa Grace Kennedy Boys and Girls Athletics Championships. And I'm going to tell you why I'm saying these things. Now, one thing I have to give credit for and credit due to is when I think about, commentary from an international perspective. Let's, use UK athletics as an example. They make it their duty to educate the audience even more than I think they should be, because sometimes I'm thinking, okay, y'all are doing too much. You know what I mean? Because these performances, in my mind, sometimes don't warrant how they're behaving, or how they're raving over some athletes or certain athletes. And because I'm thinking, then what if, your athlete was Shelly and Fraser Price? God, you'd have her sitting down on the king's throne at this particular point. You know what I mean? That's how I think about it. But as I said, it's their duty, to educate the audience, from, an athletic perspective. Let them know their story. Let them know exactly, what they've done for the country. And I have to give them kudos and shout out to them for that, because they do a fantastic job of doing so. Now, herein lies my issue, though, when it comes to Jamaica, right? And as I said, the Issa Grace Kennedy Boys and Girls Athletics Championships, this is something that I've noticed has been a trend. And clearly, at my start of this channel, 2021, it actually coincides with when this issue actually started as well, right? Or at least when I noticed, a certain shift in the narrative and the conversations being had surrounding Elaine Thompson-Herah. Now, as I said, if you're going to be doing commentary, providing commentary, you have to educate the audience. And when conversation about athletes that have paved the way in the sprints, the short sprints, we're talking about 100 meters and 200 meters, and you do everything in your power to not mention Elaine Thompson-Herah, I think that is doing a disservice to the general public, and I think it definitely needs to stop, because as I said, it is our job as commentators. And yeah, I'm not from traditional media, clearly, right? And I don't have, a journalism degree. But at the end of the day, it's still our duty to educate the audience and let them know that, hey, XYZ athlete did XYZ. And as I said, if the topic of the discussion is, said performances or said, events, then how can you have an athlete that has won double in the sprints, never done before, right? Regardless of what any other athlete has done. And we have had so much fantastic athletes in the sprints from a Jamaican perspective that have also set the pace and have done things that other athletes have not done. You know what I mean? And of course, all kudos to them, right? And they should definitely get every highlight they should be getting. But as I said, it sticks out to me as a sore thumb when you don't mention an Elaine Thompson-Herah. And I have to be wondering to myself, how is it that the sport is going to continue to grow right? We talked about the Grand Slam Track League, and I made mention of my appreciation for them going back and bringing the Vernica Campbell Browns, bringing the Asafa Powells, and quite a few Americans were there. I believe Wyoming Titus was there as well, or Titus. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing her name wrong, right? But again, we didn't really have any people telling us about these people on commentary, which is why we don't even know much about them. You know what I mean? And I'm talking about from an American perspective. Clearly, when you're listening to commentary, you rarely hear them make mention of the greats, former years. But I appreciate again Grand Slam taking time out to acknowledge these athletes and have them be a part of the conversation so that people can know where the sport is coming from, so we know where we're going. You know what I mean? And I think it's a disservice to our general public, where we're being taught where the sport is coming from, and you're making it a point of duty to not mention one of the greatest athletes to ever exist. You all can fight in the comments when it comes to whether or not you think she's the greatest. I'm not going to have that discussion because I already told you all time and time again where I think she ranks on the greatest list. That being said, she's one of the greatest athletes to ever exist, period, when it comes to the women's sprint, not just from a Jamaican perspective, but ever. And for you to be having discussions frequently, consistently, educating the audience about our sprinting legacy and not mention Elaine Thompson-Herah, to me is absolutely crazy. And practically, I'm dumbfounded because I'm thinking to myself, you have a responsibility where, let's say, you just dropped out of the womb. Clearly, you don't know what Elaine Thompson-Herah has ever done in the sport, right? And you have to listen to these persons that, these journalists that are providing commentary to educate you that, hey, we actually had an athlete back in 2021 that was able to achieve something like this that has never happened before. You know what I mean? And if we continue down this route of not mentioning Elaine Thompson-Herah, then clearly she's going to be forgotten. The same problem we're having now in track and field, where a lot of the athletes have been forgotten in track and field, all the glory that they've experienced. The young ones growing up don't know them. And if this continues, unfortunately, it seems as though Elaine Thompson-Herah is going to be forgotten. Now, you all know that I spoke about Grand Slam Track League and recognizing and acknowledging these greats. And here we have a great here, and we're willing to have her fade away with the wind just because of our own personal biases. I definitely think that this is wrong. And as I said, I definitely think that it should stop. And as I said, Trackies, it's something that has been ongoing for years now. And if you realize the trend now with commentary, when people are talking about the greats, you practically don't hear anybody mention Elaine Thompson-Herah, not locally, unfortunately, and not internationally. Because if our local people aren't willing to recognize her, you think the international people are going to be willing to recognize her as well? Like, come on, they're willing to talk about their own people. They want to put their own people up on a pedestal. Though I do believe it's still, their duty to educate people about everyone, especially if you're having a conversation about the greats that have existed in a particular event, then sure, she's in the conversation. Absolutely. To not mention her, to me, is the craziest thing, Trackies. And I don't know how some of y'all can sit back. I don't care who some of y'all's favorite is. I just don't know how some of y'all can sit back and listen to such commentary and think it is okay. I definitely don't think it's okay, and I definitely think it needs to stop. I definitely think we need to appreciate our athletes 100%, regardless of how y'all feel about them personally. This isn't no personal game. This is your job. Your job is to educate and inform and do that. That's my view. But anyway, guys, this video is not going to get me any likes. That's for sure. But you guys make sure to like the video and also subscribe if you're not subscribed. And yeah, share as well. Share it. I'll catch you on the next one, guys.